education today is highly competitive. There's competition to get into good schools, there's competition to get into good classes in those schools, and there's competition to do well in exams. There are several reasons for this. Partly it's the social status of being able to say my son goes to this school, or to say my daughter came first in the class, but mostly it's to do with limited opportunities. So if you don't get into a good school, the chances of doing well in exams are less. If you don't do well in exams, the chances of getting into a public university is less. And unless you can afford to pay for or even borrow for private higher education, you're dependent on what the state universities can offer. And the number of places offered by those universities, especially in the sort of employable degrees, hasn't grown anywhere near as fast as the number of people aspiring to them. So this means there's intense competition to get a little bit extra on the Z score in the A levels. So why do children these days go for these tuition classes? Back in the day, it used to be that you were struggling in a few subjects, you needed a bit of extra support, and you went for these classes so that you could pass the exams. But now you see people even doing very well in exams, still they're going for these classes, they're going for exam prep, they're going for revision, they're going for so many things, because it's not anymore about having that basic competence in the subject, it's about squeezing out that last little Z score point so that you can get ahead into the university system. And when even the people who are doing well in the subject go for the tuition so that they can get a better score, it literally raises the bar for everybody else. So somebody who could have got in earlier now has to get a few more marks because everybody else is getting a few more marks. So this becomes an ever intensifying rat race to get higher and higher marks. And this plays out not only for A levels but even for the scholarship exams. So back when I did the scholarship, about 140, 150 points would get you into what was called a good school. But now you're probably needing to score like 170, 180 kind of points to get to that same school because the competition has intensified. So there are several problems with this. The first one is that it's extremely stressful. Some children even end up committing suicide because they can't handle the stress. But just because somebody doesn't commit suicide or doesn't attempt suicide, it doesn't mean they're mentally okay. Right? How can they be mentally, physically, spiritually, civically, emotionally okay if they don't have time to engage in any of the pursuits that support those things, to enjoy art, to appreciate free time, to get involved with the community, to meditate, to think about the larger questions of life? If you don't have time for all of these things and all you're doing is studying because you want to do well in the exams, then what kind of childhood is that? Now sometimes school will say, yes, we have extracurricular activities for that. And by the way, extracurricular is a horrible name for these things because it effectively says, this is the curriculum and these are things extra to it. So if you have some free time, you can do this, but you know when exams are coming near, you should stop wasting your time on these things and focus on the exams is the message that we send. So yes, schools do offer extracurricular activities, but children are more and more discouraged from engaging with them because of the exam pressure. And this is having a profound impact on the mental health of our future generations. The second problem is that high-stake exams promotes teaching for and studying for the test. So we evaluate teachers based on how well their students pass the exam. We evaluate schools based on their pass rate. And we evaluate the student also based on how well they do in the exams. So with all this stress that it takes, in the end it doesn't even matter if the children remember any of these things after the exam. All it matters is, did they get good marks? So if you're not remembering these things immediately after the exam, you're not going to remember this later on in life, you're not going to make use of this, so what's the point? The third problem when the stakes are high is that it incentivizes cheating. So this is not only professional sports people who will take performance enhancing drugs or engage in match fixing, it applies in education as well. And this isn't only about cheating in exams by, writing things on your body or taking notes into the exam or copying from somebody else. It's about papers leaking before the exam itself, but it's also about other dubious practices like where we have parents faking their residence so that they can get into a good school. So we talk about schools having to provide moral education and teach children values, but at the same time, we have parents coaching their children to lie about where they live so that they can get into the school. So what kind of values are children learning from an environment like that? The fourth problem is from a larger social justice perspective. It has a negative effect on the people who most need education to succeed in life, because it's expensive to live in the catchment area of a good school. It's expensive to pay for these tuition classes and exam preparation. So although historically our free education system has enabled social mobility and for people to escape the poverty trap, it's now come to a situation where the people who most need the education to succeed in life are least able to afford to succeed in it. So this is actually making inequalities in society worse. And as long as education is structured as a race, there will always be more people who are losers than winners. So is there a way to opt out of this competition? Inside a conventional school, it's much harder, because even if you tell your child, just learn whatever, I don't care what your exam results are, the system itself still puts pressure. The teacher will ask, why is this child not studying? Why is this child not getting good results in the exam? Family members will ask, what was the rank in the class and why you're letting your child waste their childhood like this. So it's very difficult to opt out while as long as you're in that conventional system. But in the alternative that we are proposing, it's actually kind of easy, because we've already established that every child is not going to end up at the exact same place. They are going to end up in different places that work for them. So then it doesn't matter that they get to that place faster than others, because each child has their own destination, and it's about helping them to reach that destination in a time frame that works for them, works for their abilities, works for their aptitude. So the competition just even wouldn't exist in this system. The biggest benefit of taking competition out of education is that it changes the way we engage with education. So right now, because it's a competition, it's about how can I learn better than others, or how can my child learn better than other children. So for example, we heard this story of a child who had missed a day of school and had wanted to borrow the notes from a friend because they wanted to catch up. And the friend had been okay to lend the notes, but the friend's mother had said no, nothing doing, because the mother is worried about this friend getting more marks than her child. So the competition then drains our energy into this race, rather than diverting that energy or using that energy in a way that works for everybody. So we need to switch from how can I learn better than others to how can we learn better together. And that opens up an amazing world of learning opportunities, and we'll talk more about that in future videos, and I hope you'll join with us for that.